And now one manager might have a crack at the top again. Our old friend Dusty Baker.
Yep.
Dusty's out there interviewing. He's interviewing for the Houston Astros job. Why is the Houston Astros job open? Why would a team that good have just canned their manager going into the season?
Wait, canned?
Trash canned him.
Trash canned him.
As you remember, last time we were on the air, the punishments had come down for the Astros. And the trickling down was beginning to happen for Alex Cora, for Carlos Beltran. Man, if things hit the fan since we were last on the air with this story, just multiplying. And now I picture this new manager. Here's what I want to ask you guys about. Do you picture this new manager coming into this job? Dusty, Buck Showalter, if you're going for, maybe they want to go with a no-nonsense experienced veteran, somebody who's going to come in and not take any crap, versus going with an inexperienced guy, you know, an Aaron Boone type, or, you know, be bringing him fresh out, or somebody from within their system who hasn't been a big league manager before. Because I picture this new manager having to come in like, okay, y'all got the last guy canned because you were cheating with the video cameras. You took it next level, and then maybe you've got a buzzer on you attached to you somewhere, getting a signal about what pitch is coming next. So picture Dusty in there right now. If they hire Dusty, looking at Altuve and Bregman and all these guys who have thought really highly of themselves in the past and have had a lot to say on social media and in interviews in the past, to where I'm seeing Stroman and Chris Archer, like Darvish, CeCe, like I even saw Giants former third base coach 2 years ago. Even somebody was recirculating an old quote from the Giants,
Tim
Flannery.
Yeah, Flanman.
And he's talking about, he feels like, but this was an older incident rather than this one, but people were recycling it, thinking it was about now. Writers and fans, digging into it or not realizing how much this goes on, where he's like, oh, I had a camera on the other team's third base coach all the time. Flannery kind of letting it out, saying it. But it's not, this isn't us. It's not the fans on a high horse. It's not like the steroid scandal or anything. These are pitchers that are ticked off about it. Yeah. Mike Fiers blew this whistle. Like, they traded him to Detroit at the end of the year, and maybe they shouldn't have done that because they clearly ticked him off.
Yeah.
And then they were clearly watching him, when he'd face the Astros, saw what pitches were coming from him. So these are ball players that are ticked off about it. This isn't some outside thing. And you see it now. These guys aren't saying a whole lot. We haven't heard much from Altuve and Bregman. I saw these articles about they addressed it. No, they didn't. They said no comment and moved on. That was, the headline did not match the drapes in that one. And so I picture this manager now. How is this manager going to handle this, guys? He's new. He comes in. These guys had their little scam going on with Alex Cora as their bench coach, putting this in. Carlos Beltran as the vet, sort of being one of the ringleaders of this too. This new manager's got to come in and try to clean this up. He's got to step into this thing where these kids have gotten in trouble. It feels a little too substitute teacherish or something. This is going to be an odd vibe for whoever gets hired at this job, Chris.
Without a doubt. And the guy that they're going to bring in is definitely going to be that safe face type manager.
Okay.
Dusty Baker, simple. He's going to get the job done.
Yeah.
He's straight to it. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't put up with anyone's, antics or on the field, on and off. Same with Showalter. Mm-hmm. He's by the books kind of guy. He's just an old, salty vet, if you will. So they're going to bring someone in that's going to save face for the franchise, at least for this next year.
Okay.
And that's what I think Jim Crane's going to do. He expects to hire a new manager by Super Bowl Sunday, by February 3rd.
Okay.
Around there. But yeah, the new manager is going to be handed. It's really essentially, it is fill in the blank on the platter.
Awkward. It just feels so awkward.
It is. You're stepping in there, especially when you get hired. It's your team, but it's like you're stepping in. You have this just weird. I feel like you're gonna have this weird energy when you step into the clubhouse. You're gonna meet the new players. It's just gonna feel weird. Like, okay, do I really want this?
Yeah.
Do I really want to?
Because you're having to manage them. and prop them up and support them, and yet kind of be the new watchdog at the same
Yeah,
time.
hold
Like
their
you're
hand,
kind of
like-
coming in like you're the new snitch, like you're there to look over them in this situation too.
100%.
Make sure they don't do that again.
100%. And I don't know how they're going to feel, but if I were to walk in as a new manager there, it's almost as if I don't already trust my players.
Right.
And, how is that, for a new manager? Everyone's stoked to, oh, yeah, I got hired, by so-and-so.
Yeah.
I'm ready to meet the guys. I'm ready to step in the clubhouse, meet the GM, meet the owner, everything.
Yeah.
But you're walking in there already with, like, tiptoes. Like,
Yeah, there is a
really-
huge elephant in the room as soon as you walk in.
It's just going to be really awkward. I think this year is going to be interesting. And like
Yeah.
you said, just a series of unfortunate events for the Astros. And Altuve and Bregman beat around the bush trying to answer questions that they thought they did. Altuve saying everything will be fine. We'll be in the World Series next year.
Okay.
It's just, I get it. You don't want to really comment on it as a player, but at the same time, you are in the heart of it. You knew what was going on. You knew everything around it. And when the media wants answers, you're not going to give them. So it's just, it's bad for baseball. And, a lot of surveys are saying they want the players fined. They want them suspended. Manfred came out a couple years ago saying he wouldn't do that to any of the players because he's going to hold the coaches and GMs, higher-ups accountable. But just overall, it's just going to be it's going to be every game.
Yeah.
Every game to, whether you turn on for the Astros for a quick half inning, it's going to be, okay, like, are they going to talk about it? Something's going to be brought up every single game for the rest of the year.
So
Mike Clevenger's upset about it. There are actual big league pitchers that feel like you've taken food off my table with this, or some of the guy who got sent down after a bad outing against you, or things like that. Your thoughts, Stephen, on how a manager steps into this awkward babysitter situation, and what these guys did and how they're handling it.
So I think it's kind of tough when you mention like an older manager, like a no-nonsense, old-school type of guy, because you have to remember they're all about analytics in Houston.
Yep.
And so trying to find a coach that has that kind of a strong hand mentality that will also come in and listen to your numbers guy, it's going to be kind of difficult. But if anybody, honestly, Dusty Baker, I actually really like for the job. Dusty deserves another shot at running a big league team.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And he's old school baseball. He played, he came up through the ranks, he came up through the coaching ranks, he can walk in, and if I could picture Dusty Baker walking in with this toothpick, and I could picture him having a garbage can in the middle of the clubhouse. And I could picture him walking up and just not saying a word and looking at everybody chewing on that toothpick, taking a bat, smashing that garbage can, and be like, if you don't like it, there's the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that'll get everybody's attention because they're major leaguers. They're laid back. They're not paying attention. But if he goes up and he whacks that garbage can a couple times and then uses the bat to point Babe Ruth style at the door, boom. That gets rid of the eggshells. That gets rid of the atmosphere. That gets rid of all of that right away. Is that something that's going to happen? Just my little fantasy
version
mind.
of it, yeah,
But a version of it
exactly,
might. And where he comes in and he's not, this is no nonsense. We're not, and he wouldn't stand for cheating like that.
Right,
You know,
right.
being an old school baseball player that, really, he had a long career, both playing and coaching and managing. So it would take something like that, or you're going to get another yes man, and it's just going to be a dead year for the Astros and their coaching, and they'll try to wait for some of this stink to wash off.
Yes,
and then
it's
hire
possible.
somebody after next season, which I actually think is most likely.
Okay.
Because I don't think they're going to be able to find a candidate that's actually going to have a lot of success with them for this season.
Yeah, it's possible because I wonder what's going to change. Like, it's a good point you bring up about their analytical side and what they're known for, because they can the GM too, and the leader of their baseball operations. Lunau's gone as well. He's out. So, their whole vibe was pretty bad. They had this definite cold, evil, shady vibe about them, the whole organization. And, the more details leak out, whether it's from Carlos Beltran's niece's fake Twitter account that's actually maybe a player's account from what we've heard more than anything. And, and him not wanting to take off the shirt at the, the walk-off home run against the Yankees.
That was Altuve.
Altuve, yes.
Altuve.
Now when yeah.
And it's funny because now so much is coming under scrutiny as far as going back over a film. And, the footage I saw when he's running, he literally clasps his chest and you see him duck down. You say, you can read his lips. Don't take off my shirt.
Don't pull it off. Yeah.
And then they asked him post-game about it when he's in his warm-up shirt. And he said, I'm shy. And last time it happened, my wife didn't like it and blah, blah, blah. And then you see all these.
He gets asked it once.
Yeah.
And then he goes, what was that? He asked it. What was it? What did you say?
Huh?
Let me buy a little time here while I try to figure out how I'm going to answer this.
As every
you
man,
didn't want to get the shirt ripped off. Why? I got in trouble. I'm shy. I got in trouble with my wife last time. That whole bit.
As every man knows, when you're asked a direct question, if you go, what? Huh?
What?
What? Yeah, you're lying. You're lying.
You're buying yourself time.
Yeah, you're lying.
An awkward laugh in there too. Yeah, he walks off of the field, changes into that AL championship shirt, then comes back on, unlike everybody else who, had changed them right there. So it's just odd.
Shady.
There's odd things and
everything about it.
And the more they didn't address it, the more these rumors are just going to fly on from here.
Absolutely. And I mean, it just feels like every day you're going to find out something new. And who knows, maybe it could lead into the start of the season. And going back to the new manager, it's if this is still going on with spring training going around, I mean, it's going to be tough going into that clubhouse, that atmosphere. And still having, as a new manager, it's going to be tough for whoever takes it on and having to beat off these questions, and just kind of keep it straight to the point, saying, obviously not going to put around with any of that, and change the way it is in that clubhouse. But it's just everything. It's not just a coincidence anymore. It's facts. I mean, everything that's coming out, they obviously still have to do more looking into. Even though they said they didn't find anything substantial in the first, as far as this past year in the postseason. But, I mean, all this footage that's coming out, and the new ones and, videos of people analyzing it all makes 100% sense.
Right. It does. And as a Yankee fan and having like CC and guys come out and talk about it, even you, Darvish, asked if anybody out there could now make him a "you garbage" jersey because obviously I wasn't, tipping my pitches.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just see I don't know if you guys saw I want to say it's the Staten Island Yankees when they're starting next month for spring training, their giveaway for one of the first home games. Tim, I think you already know it's a garbage can.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the first 750 fans.
So my buddies out at the A's, the loyal fans and left field bleachers,
nice.
They have been catching a lot of heat since all this went down about the drum section tipping pitches because you can see in to the catcher, which is just nonsense. It's just, it's just fans back and forth drawing. But I actually saw a Houston reporter actually talk about this on his Twitter. So they have already made shirts for when the Astros come to town, and they're going to be giving them away in the tailgates, and they've got them for sale, and they've got a whole plethora. They've got one of garbage cans with like eyes coming out of it. They've got like all kinds of like funny stuff. I'll retweet it today if you guys want to check out my Twitter and check it out for any A's fans out there.
I knew minor league baseball was going to have some fun with this, where they can get a little loose with the promotions, where the big league can't. But it just even Aroldis Chapman's reaction to Jose Altuve's walk-off dinger has a different light shed on it now.
And, I mean, okay, it's Aroldis Chapman. He's going up there throwing 100+.
Yeah.
And granted, last year and the year before, the past couple of years, he's thrown a little bit more sliders.
Yeah.
Not substantial, not anything too heavy, but he's worked that in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Altuve on that pitch to literally, I mean, he was up in the box.
Up
in the box. He read it right off his hands. He knew it was going on the outside part.
Yeah.
He everything about it just screamed. He knew that first pitch slider was coming to him.
And there's guessing. And then there's knowing, you know what I mean? Because throughout baseball, you work a pitch count. You try to see what might be coming. Oh, this is more of a fastball count. We've talked about it. We've all talked about it on broadcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I bet we could see an off-speed pitch here, a changeup or a slider here. But then when you're actually adjusting yourself in between pitches in the box because you have that knowledge of this 100+ mile per hour pitcher is going to throw me something off speed right now. That
An
it just
87
yeah,
slider.
yeah. It's just that's too much.
Yeah, it's it just lingers over them, and now it's spread into 2 other organizations because of folks who have left. Really, I found this wild kind of tongue-in-cheek moment from Alex Cora when they played the Yankees in London, right? And it's strange. It's odd to me because he's being real tongue-in-cheek, and yet there's some foreshadowing, and there's kind of this wink-wink sort of thing going on to it at the same time with him in this one that I just thought was really bizarre. Some audio examples to what we're talking about here. Let's start with Jose Altuve's answer after Ken Rosenthal asked him about not wanting to take the shirt off there.
You asked the teammates not to tear your shirt. Why?
What's that?
Did you ask your teammates not to tear your shirt? Why was that?
I don't know. I'm too shy. Last time they did that, I got in trouble with my wife.
That is Kawhi Leonard worse.
Oh my gosh.
than his laugh for sure, dude. What was that? Oh, hi. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so loud here. I can't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
So, and I don't want to act like to get some sort of superiority complex over it because, yeah, sure, everybody tries to steal signs. That's a thing. We'll do
No
that.
secret.
But the line has been with the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the cutoff. It's like, okay, you can't use the live feed because this sport was created at a time when that didn't exist. And, you're altering the game a little too much at that point. So that's where the line gets fuzzy. And I hear, well, everybody does it. Okay, well, everybody speeds on the freeway, too. Don't get caught. Okay?
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's a hefty ticket depending on how fast you're going.
And we've seen this with, pine tar on bats, George Brett.
Sure.
We've seen this, pitchers in the 60s and 70s made a living off of their spitball where they'd have a little spit shine somewhere hidden on their uniform. And, there's a certain aspects of this that are part of the game. You've got a runner on second leaning in, and he's like watching the grip of the pitcher. That's why if anybody that out there watches, you notice the pitcher is constantly changing the ball around in his hand.
You try to figure out how he's fanning his glove, if it comes to his belt. Yeah, you look for everything.
You look for everything. And that's gamesmanship.
Yeah.
That's technically not really cheating. That's, it's getting a leg up on your opponent, which every competitor will do in every sport at every time. But you've got a buzzer that is taped to your chest so you can feel like you have a, Morse code, in between pitches. That's just wrong. And it's not, it's one thing, like, we're going to make fun of this, and we're probably going to have a lot of fun going forward as more and more details come out. And I think that's okay to completely make fun of these guys for doing this, because you're kind of just garbage at this point.
Yeah.
Like you were successful. You got a World Series ring.
Yeah.
Altuve, you're like 4'9", and you're making all these big hits and big moments.
And everybody wants to imitate your whole model that you're doing, thinking that was why. Yeah.
And instead of coming out like Steph Curry, you're coming out like hot garbage.
Yeah.
And people want to model their game after you. But, how are they going to sneak a buzzer under their shirt?
That's the new move. All right, this one's for you, Chris. Alex Cora, London series, talking about Carlos Beltran, who was working in the Yankees organization.
Just how you feel. Obviously, your pitchers took a beating these last couple of days.
It wasn't a good weekend on the field. That's a good offensive team. We know that. They're a lot better than last year. Their attention to detail is phenomenal. I was joking with somebody that their biggest free agent acquisition is Carlos Beltran.
He does a wink right there.
Mm-hmm.
I know how it works. He's helping a lot. They're paying attention to details, and we have to clean our details. It was eye-opening the last 2 days. from top to bottom. And I'm not saying, devices and all that stuff. It's just stuff that the game will dictate and will scream at people. And it's right there. And throughout the evening, I was looking, and I saw it, and right now they're a lot better than us. So we need to get better.
Wow.
Yeah, he's just like coming out and saying, well, Carlos Beltran's over there now, and he's doing the sign stealing scheme that we did in Houston. So, their attention to detail is great right now with the devices.
It's like the Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other from across the diamond.
So that, and again, when we look back at so many things now, Chapman's reaction, the don't want the shirt ripped off, this quote from Cora, like everything just takes on this whole other meaning now that we weren't thinking about before. Your reaction to hearing him say this after this London series, Chris?
I think the audio just doesn't give it enough justice just because it specifies, especially on Twitter, at the 27th second mark, he makes that facial gesture and he makes the wink.
The wink. The eyes are moving around at times. Yeah.
The smirk, the smug face. It all, I wish, those who were listening could see the video. If not, look it up right now. You'll see it. But
tell you what, at TimmyFitz76, gonna retweet that right now. Yep. So it's there.
Go there. It sucks. It really does, especially as a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
Like I know, Yankees fan, you're sore losers. But
it does.
It's a bad taste in my mouth as a Yankees fan because that, especially, as a fan, I'll agree with CC Sabathia in 17. I mean, that was a team, the Yankees team that was hot. They came back from 2-0 against Cleveland. That was favored to win the World Series that year. Came back, beat them. They went into Houston and went 7 games with them toe-to-toe in a matchup that everyone had at the Astros sweeping the Yankees, if not maybe a 4-1 that year. But just it sucked. That year, the Yankees felt like they had some magic in the postseason, and all of a sudden, Houston just halted that. And the numbers at home, everything at home when they played in Houston the Yankees just didn't seem right. And Houston just seemed they have a little bit more of an edge somehow, some way, and it all puzzles back.
And Joe Buck actually talked about the atmosphere in Houston and how there was an effect of the games.
Yeah.
How it seemed, Houston's coming home, it's the home cooking, and they seem to get up when they come home to play. Because you're right, Chris, I remember watching that World Series, and my aunt in the East Coast is a real big Yankees fan, and just watching it, so her and I can talk, and if I needed to trash talk, I could, and so but going back and watching, it was a tale of two stadiums, and it really was.
And a lot of people make the case that 2017 postseason, a lot of teams won at home, and the home road splits for every team in that playoff. But when you look at specifically the Astros and their splits home and away, it does make sense.
Yeah, especially the 18 season and 19 last year too. They get talking about, well, we didn't see any. Okay, well, I think they just had a different version going on with the buzzer or whatever's happening now. So Houston needs a new manager, changing general managers and people above them as well. So there's this, even though they're a perennial playoff contender, they've got a World Series under the belt. They coming off of a league championship. Even though they've got all that, we think they have a talented roster. I don't know really now
we'll see
how
this year.
good these guys are without knowing if it's a slider or a fastball. We think they're good. So some manager is going to step into there, and maybe it's a decent situation. Boston, talented team. They'll threaten to make the playoffs again at least. They're not slashing payroll that much. I know they're tired of the luxury tax. They want to reset before then maybe getting back into that level of spending again or to be able to afford Mookie Betts. So that's still a decent team, though, that you're taking over, that some manager is going to step into. But it also got the Mets. And that is usually a perpetual tire fire, the New York Mets. And somebody's got to step into that now with this Carlos Beltran restart, thinking of these other 2 jobs. We've talked about stepping into the Houston one where it's all still heavy in the room, that You talked about wanting to beat the trash can right away because that gorilla, that elephant is right there as soon as you walk in. The other two situations, Boston's kind of got their thing lingering over them. And then the Mets have their own Metness that lingers over them for decades. Yeah. So let's talk about those two. How's the manager deal with coming into Boston? Well, there's still even some investigating about them last year going on. And then coming into the Mets situation, strangely, the Mets feel like maybe the cleanest situation of all these to come into, Chris.
No, without a doubt. I was going to say, I think out of all three teams, the Houston Astros, the Boston Red Sox, and the New York Mets, I think as a managerial candidate, I would love the Mets job out of out of the three teams. Exactly. You would think it's, the Mets have been a laughing stock, if you will. Besides that one lone mysterious way of making the World Series in 2015, I want to say, against the Royals.
Was that them against the Royals?
It was.
No, that was
They lost 4-1.
Okay. That was that bunch. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, okay.
Besides that one year, they've been a laughing stock
weird.
for quite a while.
So I have a coaching candidate, if anybody out there from the Mets is listening. Bobby Bonilla
Okay.
comes back and he works for free since he hasn't been.
Still
on
the payroll.
Still, every July 1st, Bobby Bo cashes almost a $1.2 million check.
Yeah.
What a great contract that was for him. So maybe he'd come back and maybe it's the Bobby Bo curse. Maybe that's an actual thing that I've heard some Mets fans talk about. So maybe bring him in. He's not going to cheat.
Without a doubt.
Lead rumor is Bobby Valentine in a mustache and a wig.
I would pay to see that again, especially in a modern day
For a
era.
whole season.
The memes that would come out with that.
My gosh.
Oh my goodness. But I think the Mets do have the best, the favorable spot out of all the three teams. They have a lot of talent right now. They have a lot of starting pitching. Actually, I think one of the top 5 starting rotations in the league right now.
That is a total
arguably.
strength.
And
Yes.
cap space, I believe, too.
And some cap space. They're looking to trade away some pieces, whether it be Steven Matz or Jed Lowry, who didn't even play for them last year because he was injured. But they have some payroll. They have some pieces that they can move around. And I think one thing that you said, the payroll with Cespedes, able to make a deal with him, shed off around 20 mil right there for this year, I think is a big help. But I think that Mets team, it's New York. Who doesn't want to be in New York? And if you want the spotlight, and you're handed a team that's, as long as you make the right moves, they're in contention from opening day. I mean, with that starting rotation, maybe trade for an extra bat or two, see where things go. But I do like the Mets as the favorite out of all three teams, and I think that they could potentially have the best year out of all three teams this year.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Tim, like the Boston situation with that bloated payroll, because they've been in the luxury tax for a long time.
Yeah.
I do think good news, though, for Boston. I think Pablo Sandoval finally comes off of their books. Thanks a lot for that, Boston. I appreciate it as a Giants fan. But, I think you're right. And they're going to have trouble restructuring with all of those contracts and having pieces that maybe you can't really move that easily because of how much money that they're making. So, Houston's going to be hot garbage. But don't bump. Boston, you're looking at
See
payroll
how many
issues.
of these we can work in here.
Yeah, and so you're right, Chris. I definitely think you're right that it's New York, it's the Mets. They do seem like a younger, up and coming team with some opportunity to add pieces, and it's great for New York when they have both teams that are actually competitive at the same time. Yeah. And there's, you've got Judge and Stanton in pinstripes. There's, but a lot of other pieces I think need to come for them to remain competitive, for the future. They're competitive. They'll definitely be competitive now and today. But if you can get both of those teams, a good rivalry going, just like out here in the Bay Area, if the two teams out here are competitive at the same time, it's fantastic for baseball in the Bay Area. We got so much to talk about. And it's the same thing in New York.
Boy, the Mets is the preferred job. Okay, I'm just going to try to get my head around that real quick.